Okay. So like I was saying, this is my 12th book. And when I surveyed out this community, this is one of the Baltimore County 40 historic communities, but not historic in the true sense of the word. They just somehow, in 1992, took 40 African-American settlements and called them historic. And my friend Linwood Johnson, who's been my mentor for years, he had tons of information about these communities, and he was the one that really got me started on this. But when we came to this particular area of Granite, there were many, many African Americans here, blacks, during the slavery era. You know, the quarries were known. They were shipping quarries from these, the granite from these quarries all over the world, especially Washington, D.C. And they just had the one person, Worthington, I read a newspaper article about him. He brought, and I quote, an army of slaves here to work. Just to slave and work. But they were getting some kind of substance, from what I understand, because right along this road out here, Offord Road, I did have his first name, Mr. Offord, who owned all of this. He then began to capitalize on finding places where blacks could live after they worked their way out of slavery. And he built these little shanties up and down this street right here. And so as they worked their way out, they continued to live here until they could work their, get enough to get their wives and their children out of slavery from all over this part of the county. They started their own church. They did. They squatted on this man's land right here. Now, the cornerstone doesn't reflect that. The cornerstone says it was built in 1877. I mean, that was fine if that was the truth. But as I went about the county seeking people, African Americans, who lived here, so I could interview, I could gain the history of the community, I just had a tremendous thought that this church was here longer than that. So as I began to speak, especially to white groups, they, and especially Granite Historical Society, said, Mr. Diggs, this was the only black church here. Nothing was here during the slavery era. Well, I didn't believe it. And it just happens that, I don't know, God gave me some sort of wisdom to check with the older retired historian from Baltimore County. His name was John McGrain. John McGrain sent me a copy of the Sun paper dated June 30, 1869, and it said in this article that this big storm came through Woodstock, Granite, Randallstown, and it tore Mr. So-and-so's roof off, and it said it tore down the colored church. It said it either knocked it down or tore it down. That was it. The church was here in 1869. Who knows when it started? And the thing that really made me believe strongly that the church was here, because on the other road, up Old Court Road, I have found safe houses. And I figured this could have been a safe house. Now, my thoughts are really strong on that now. I've no time to seek that information out, but somebody will step up when I'm gone and say, shucks, I'm going to keep on checking on the history of black life. I only scratched the surface. And I proved that this church was here in the 1860s. Somebody's going to pick up and take it back even further. And then they would find that it's on the, that it could have been a safe house. Well, in any case, the building was about to fall down. And I knew the last trustee, a lady named Helen Johnson. She lived in Catonsville. She was one of the blacks that lived right next to the cemetery, National Cemetery. What's the name of that little street that goes up there? Yeah, she was all part of Full Gospel Tabernacle. Her sister was involved. Anyhow, I did know her. And she was sharing the history of this particular church with me. Well, as time went on, and she began to weaken, and she approached me. She asked me if you and Linwood could promise me try to save this church, which was called Cherry or AUMP, African Union Methodist Protestant Church. And of course, we had on our board Richard Lee, who was a retired lawyer out of Baltimore County. So we told her, yes, we would try to save her church. And right away, the state of Maryland gave $400,000 to restore the church and convert it to the Dix Johnson Museum. And just we were almost ready to reach the point where we were saving the church itself. We wanted to bring her out to show it to her. And she had passed. We didn't get a chance to let her see her church. This church, I made sure that nothing happened to it. Nothing, I couldn't change anything because I wanted to put it, make it on the registered historic structure. And you all know me now. I've been on Baltimore County Landmark Preservation Commission for about 13 years. And I made sure that we got that designation. Right now, I'm working on, for next year, I will have it on the National Register of Historic Places. Just like Granite down here is, this will be the second such building. But we changed absolutely nothing. We added these 3 rooms in the back, and that $400,000 could only go so far. And we were unable to put a full basement on, which we really needed. But we got one that I can go on. Looking at some of the agents that you all couldn't go on. I mean, it's really low. And when we had this big freeze and the water pipes broke under there, and we were all in behind. We simply couldn't, just couldn't get up under there. And our funding was not strong, but we did have enough to at least stop the water. The water drained down through the floor where the heating element, and it just messed our furnace up. So we're still in the pickle. This room here was not touched, but the rooms out here, and we have to close the door. We can't allow anyone to go in the back because the tiles are loose. And if somebody were to trip on the tiles, then, we'd be responsible. So until we can get that done, we'll be able to restrict it just to this room. But that's how this particular church, first it was called Sacred Heart something. She didn't know, Miss Helen didn't know how it got changed from there. It was long before she was in. She'd be over 100 years old now. Because she was about 90-some years old when I talked with her. So, but that's it. But now, for today, oh, be careful now. Hey, how's it going?
It's good to see you, sir.
Reverend Cooper. Hi, Burnell. All right. Anybody coming with you? All right. I would like y'all to meet Reverend Cooper. He's one of the ministers from my other church, Grace AME Church, down in Catonsville. And of course, his wife, she was born. I grew up with her mother. So even though I've been away from Catonsville for a long time, I've always loved Burnell. She's a good people. So now y'all just caused me to lose my train of thought. Sorry. On today, about African Americans from Baltimore County that served during World War I. When I say Baltimore County, I mean they either were born here, raised here, or worked here in Baltimore County. Those people, those are the ones that I've written about. I've already published a book. The book is almost 500 pages, and last month is when we had the class or presentation about them, and you would be surprised at the number of men from this county who ran away from their masters, including right here in Granite, wanted their freedom, signed up in these United States regiments. What were they called? United States Colored Troops, USCT. and they ran away and joined them, and the owners contacted the government and fought to get them back. All of this is in writing. Of course, the Army would not let them go, and this book tells you exactly what they have done during that particular war. And it's amazing. They had every battle that they participated in, just everything about them, including their retirements, how they got health care after they got out of the service. And a lot of people, including this boy right here, had no idea as to why would a man run away from slavery and then go and fight for the same man that enslaved him and his family. And I don't know, lots of people think of patriotism, which might be the case, but I drew my own conclusions. And I think, and I'm pretty right on it. Look, anytime when your ancestors were slaves, some got nothing, some got a pittance of something. And when slavery ended, they were just free, period. So there they are sitting out here doing nothing, earning nothing, got families, can't feed them. Well, let me tell you something about what happened to those guys that opted to join the United States Colored Regiment. First of all, if they enlisted, they got $100 cash. $100 in 1863 was a lot of money. Now, we know the war has been there since 1861, but it wasn't until 1863 when the government permitted African Americans to serve in the war. So they only really served 2 years, 63 and 64. So in addition to the $100 they got, if they stayed in the full term, they got $350 more. This is definitely a fact. Some people don't believe it, but this is true. I have copies of all of the records from the state of Maryland that showed who owned that particular slave, how much money that slave made during his time he was in the service, and after the service was over, he could petition our state or any state that was a free state where he could get his money from, the rest of his money. And during that time, I understand that the states put the money mostly into the Freedmen's Bureau. It became the Freedmen's Bank, and a lot of people, they went busted, and a lot of people lost their money. But those that did not, having the $350, that was a heck of a lot of money. I never understood. I've been doing this now for 29 years. When I would go through census records, especially up in North Baltimore County, you would see the census records, say during the slavery era, it showed how much money that person was worth, money he had in his pocket or in a bank, and how much did he have in real estate. That's right on the census. There were blacks up every $2,000. Honestly, that's a lot of money. You can come down to, say, like Catonsville, for example. There was a black man there that was making far more money than the white man. That was Remus Adams. And we all know Remus Adams was his father, black man, owned a blacksmith shop on Frederick Road, which happened to be the, what's the road called? It's the National Road. And even today, those communities along there can get funding. Even Catonsville, and I've been trying for a long time to get our museum people to apply for some of that money. And I don't know why they don't do it. When I call, and this lady said, no, we never heard of Winner's Lane on the National Road. I said, man, Winner's Lane ends at Frederick Road. It ends there. That lady called me back and said, you're right. She said, are you going to apply for a grant? I said, best we can do right now is $250,000. I couldn't do it. I have enough going on my own, so I was hoping that the Catonsville people would do it. They ain't do it. And then guess what? That opportunity is still there. Really, it's still there. Oh, my goodness. But in any case, the owner also, if he applied or she applied for the release of the slave, she got or he got $350. But first of all, he had to submit some document that proved that he owned that slave. Either his father willed him to him, or he bought the slave from somewhere. If he submitted that proof and agreed that if the government refuses to let him go, would they accept $350? Those two took on well to him. The third one killed at least 2 people. That sure got him in my book. They had to take an oath of allegiance to the Union. They wouldn't do it. Maryland, these people said, "No, you keep the money. I'm Confederate." So they didn't get the money. But there was an awful lot of money made then. And there was many of those troops, United States Color Regiment, over 75. But in any case, that I believe really made the difference in why a lot of them joined on their own. They were either slaves or freed slaves, either one. Once they proved they were free, and of course they were okay. I want to share something with you. Unfortunately, I can't find my packet that will hook up to our overhead projector where you can really see it. But I have a PowerPoint presentation that gave some talking points that I wanted to share with you. Where's Terry? Terry, are you here? Blair. I have a thumb drive on. Yeah. So look, what I'm going to share with you, I want you to feel free to come up and see it. This is about the biggest screen. The front load, I'm sure we'll be able to see it, but I don't know about the back load. I just want to share some things with you as to how I came up with my information. And none of this is mine. Everything that you see on there came from the National Archives records or Maryland State records, and I so stated on here. I drew my own conclusions after I had written the book. I mean, you can't write 500 pages of something and don't have your own opinion when it's done. And this is one thing I'm glad I have done for just to of course, I did this in 2016, and this gentleman right here, Lawrence, he came from up North County, up around Whitehall area. Him and his siblings, most of them served in World War I, and I think I picked up one in the Civil War as well. And this is a group of men who had earned, I can't think, Croix de Guerre or whatever it's called, but it's equal to our Silver Star when they fought in France during World War I. And it mentions the fact that 2 of them came from Baltimore County. I can't track their name down. And this gentleman, Wilson, came out of East Houston. His grandson had saved 2 of his helmets that he had saved while he was. This was off of the internet. It was just showing the United States troops. And you know they didn't fight with the white people. Can you turn it a little bit? You see it? This young man, I got this picture from one of the Diggs family out in Pine Groves. I'm assuming that he's a Diggs, but I couldn't positively identify him. And this gentleman, Jacob Lee, is from Bond Avenue. He was a chef, and he ended up only making an awful lot of money. He really took care of his family. He fought well in the war. And this is a part of the 372nd Regiment. But the regiment, blacks only served in 2 divisions in World War I. One was the 290. This is my great uncle, Hilton Diggs. And Hilton, he loved France. He was single. He didn't want to come back home. His sisters raised so much heck for him, made the man come back home. Hopped on the train, went up to Piney Grove, where our church is. And it goes right through the houses, right through backyards, goes real slow. He just jumped off, and they go to church. Well, when he jumped off, got his foot caught, and the train ran over him. Never did get to see his family. He fought well in the, I do have, each one of these, I have their records of what they did, how they served. This is Smith, he came out of East Dallas. And this was my first real being able to capture images of blacks. Most of them, these were black officers. It was the 92nd and the 93rd Infantry Division. Those were the only two that blacks served in. The Expeditionary Force refused to fight with blacks. And that's a handsome young man there. I couldn't find out where he was. Lutherville area. One more. This is my relative. His son, grandson, just died. Albert Diggs lives in Green Spring Valley, where your mother used to work. That's where he lived in that. Stop. I wanted to show you. I don't know. Glenn, you know I can stop and look at any one of them. It's almost at the end. I want to be able to go. Okay. I want to go back to a particular. Blair, I'm still hung up here. How do I get rid of? I want to see the whole his whole record.
Go back to just the slideshow.
Go back to the.
We'll go back to that.
But
You want to go forward? Just use this key. These keys.
Yeah, I'm gonna just pick one. Well, I just wanted to give one to give you an idea of just exactly what he did in the service. But I was right near the end. In any case, though, it gave a lot of information, and this can be a wonderful resource tool for people who think their ancestors came out of Baltimore County, but they should not think that Baltimore County may have not been Baltimore County when these people, especially these from the World War I, because Baltimore City has been annexing part of Baltimore County for years. There are at least 5 counties cut out from Baltimore County. Carroll County, Cecil County, Frederick County, Howard County, at least 5 of them. And then those people that came from a place on the east side, like where it's like where Cousin Moke and I come from. We were born in an area called Hose Height, which is just off of Falls Road and Cold Spring Lane. If you all ever noticed, there was a big towel back there. Well, right beside it is 2 streets that have been black for God knows how long. And it's called Hose Height. Mr. Hose owned all that land. He owned so much of it wasn't funny. We all played on the field back there, and now it's just full of houses called Kite Hill. In any case, from corner. I'm not sure how much further up Baldwin Park they went, but 1918 was the last annexation of Baltimore City that made up much of the east side. Like Monica's mother and my mother, they were the two of the oldest in our family. Both of them were in Baltimore County. They were born well before 1918. Then they moved over to Waverly. Even all that now is Baltimore City. So the guys that were separated from the army, thinking they were maybe still in the city on that side, no, they were a part of, of Baltimore City itself. But the other annexation took generations ago. Baltimore County was one of the most largest counties in the state of Maryland. But Baltimore County itself only credits its own self from 16-something, 350 years. Every 50 years they write their history. And Adrian Jones, they never had anything black in them. And when they did their 350th, Adrian Jones had only done 3 books then. She asked me if I would go to the Historical Society and share with them what I've learned about African Americans from the county. And as a result, I did. Stayed a year and a half. First time ever there was anything black in the 350th anniversary book. And I was working though, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, to be honest with you. I really did. The pictures that were taken, for example, my publicist said, just do a 72 DPI, which it means very low resolution. None of them would work on that 350 one. Best one was Adrian's picture, and hers was pretty high, because I used one of her professional pictures. But they were so impressed. UMBC had a project of writing the book, and the Historical Society was so impressed to learn that there was history of black life right beside the building. The Historical Society is in the mansion where it was called the Alms House, and that's where the poor people went for care. And blacks were treated there as well as whites. Beside the building, not, I would say it's 50 feet maybe, was another brick building, not brick, stone building, that was called a pestilent house or pest house. Every county in the state had a pest house for their people poor people that needed help. So if they had diseases that they couldn't, that's where they went. And there, black people went there. The building itself, I found, the stone was quarried out of the Texas quarry using slaves. The building was built in 1872. I get this email from Dr. Can't think of his name. He was president, and he said, Mr. Diggs, the board decided that they would help you acquire the pest house and name it the Lewis S. Diggs Research Center. And I said, well, it looked like they would ask me if I would at first. But no, this was really a really good deal, because out in the Baltimore County Historical Society, there's more black history out there than you realize. Just ain't no black people out there to go and do the research. And then besides, there's a branch of the library there. And what I could offer from what I've been collecting and from other connections, with the Benjamin Banneker Museum and others, that would have been a nice mix. So we talked to Adrian, and Adrian is where I would get my advice on how to get money to do this. I did like that idea. So Baltimore County, I asked them if they would lease the building to me for 100 years for $1. That's a standard thing for $1. Now, fine, they said. I had a nice recommendation from cabinets. Well, cabinets turned on me. As the building, when Adrian and I went out, and the president of that organization, everybody, we all agreed that it could be saved. It had nothing but a shell, no flooring, no bathroom, nothing at all in it. Just 3 rooms downstairs and 3 rooms upstairs. Outside looked like it was only maybe 50 years old, but it was built in 1872. Well, Adrian said, Mr. Dick's going to take it. So we'll get the funding for it. Fine. So anyhow, I was gotten an architect. Cost of that building would have been something like $450,000 for me to put it back into the shape it was in. I began to dislike the building myself, to be totally honest with you. After I was reading how, seeing the pictures of people in the house, they had a chain link fence around it. They were just like dogs, where you put the food under the, it just turned me off completely. But I did decide to go along with it, okay? I got the first amount of money I need. I got $100,000 right away to start the process. Well, as we went along, there's a whole lot of things were involved in it. I'm getting emails from the county lawyer that said they're talking to me about the building. So I would go and I would take Richard Lee, the lawyer on my board with me. I never understood. They said, well, Mr. Diggs, if something happens to the roof, you would have to pay to get it done. I said, wait a minute. I'm only leasing the building. I'm not buying it. He said, this is a landlord-tenant thing. And the Richard were arguing the same thing. They said, no, you have to get it fixed. And we go, another month go by, then come up with something else they say, I'd be responsible. I got sick and tired of the county. They changed their mind. Because I found that out in the Historical Society, they were putting office buildings out there rather than build buildings, new buildings for offices. They took some of the older buildings. And that messed up the Historical Society because they have a huge museum in there, all kinds of information. And they were taking from them their room to do things. So I just gave up. I just stopped it and I just let it go. And it wasn't but a few months later, boom, I've come to this particular project with $400,000. And what I do appreciate about the fact is that the county, people that are born and raised in Baltimore County, blacks don't really care that much about the county. And I can certainly understand, honestly I can understand. When I moved out here, I just loved Katy, I really did. We could only go up to the departments. Melvin. Matter of fact, if you wanted a taste of a black boy, taste of the county, and that was the only place he could go. I had professors when I was teaching ROTC out in Morgan. Hey, when we go to school, maybe 40 people would be all the way out to Morgan that didn't want to live in the city, but to live in the county. Live right there until things really worked. But I'll tell you what they did to me. I don't know who was the county exec at that time, but the building, a lot of buildings were owned and not, they would just look terrible. And I was with a group of people that were trying to get the county to fix the houses up, or to make the owners fix them up. And in the newspaper, the Argus at the time, come back and said, well, if Mr. Diggs don't like living in the county, maybe he'd go back to Baltimore where he belongs. Well, that has been with me for now damn near 30 years. And I'm dying to write me a little refute to that, to say, my people have been here since the 1700s. How long have your people been here in the county? What can you say? I can't do it. I can't do it. I've searched it. I know where it is and how to get to it, but I just can't do it. But, I mean, this is about all that I really have on World War I, unless you've got some good questions that I can come back with some decent answers for you. Because I'm still upset by not having access to a donation that these people made to us that I'm not able to use. Do we have any questions up to this point at all about World War I?
Mine isn't specifically on World War I.
Pick them anymore.
But my cousin, Guy Locklear's mother, Dolores Bennett, is from this area. her son is buried there too. And when they had their repast, it was at I think it was a Catholic facility right out near the cemetery. Beautiful building.
National Cemetery?
No, the cemetery right out here in Granite, or Woodstock. I don't know what you call it, Granite or Woodstock, because it seems to switch back and forth. But the Bennetts are from this area. And
Yes, they are.
I would love for my cousin to talk to you. He could probably give you a lot of information.
And the Bennetts, believe it or not, I'm more familiar with them than any family. They're about the last out here. As a matter of fact, I did them a great favor. Have you ever heard of the 272? Just the number 272. Georgetown was built, they took from slaves their property and built their university on. 272 of them, they want to be sure that their descendants or ancestors are cared for. And sure enough, I got this email one day from 2 lawyers said that they would be glad to represent me because I was a descendant of a, what was her first name? Mary, Mary Hayes. You remember. So I get this email and I said, wow. Now I know we were from this, owned by John B. Diggs, D-I-G-E-S. He was a Catholic. He did sell some of his slaves. And they thought sure that I was a descendant of one. So I got involved with Georgetown. It ended up, I doubt seriously if it's mine, I don't know. But one of my grandchildren, his son, wants to go there, and he's got his ear perked up so he can continue the research. But the Bennetts, when I told them about how the Jesuits brought their slaves from St. Mary's County after the Civil War up to Granite and built Woodstock College, which is now Woodstock Job Corps Center, and quite a few of them, especially the Bennetts, they do have descendants from, and I know they are really, really happy. And I've met several of them since I've been out here.
Some of them live out here and have really nice homes out here.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness, yes. But they wouldn't like that back then. No, indeed. But now they did have slave quarters. Some of them are still here. Not in too good a stead, but I do know that this was not the only black cemetery out here. There's another black cemetery that's over on Old Court Road. It's in the area where Bethel AME Church wanted to build its mother church. That land was, the name of the church was called, help me out, Terry. Marcella Chapel. Was built in the 1700s with the slave galley, and it was a Methodist church. 1877, as things began to die out here, white people left. In 1877, they turned that church over to their black congregation. They could only afford to keep it for 10 years. And when things happened, when the Bethel AME Church wanted to start to build, I wrote to the pastor and asked him, told him that, you know, this was a black place, cemetery there, a church that you wanted. And I thought his congregation might know a little bit about the history. After about a year and a half, the minister wrote me back. So they had no real interest. But then they hit the cemetery. That's it. They killed it. They lost it. Once you hit a cemetery, and everything has to stop. Only the state's attorney can give you relief. Now, we started building this thing. The construction guys did the same thing. Hit the daggone grave site. And I didn't know what to do, so I went down to, what's the one down in Dogwood? The Marches place. Memorial Park, King's Memorial. Yeah, so Eric, he knew I was in trouble because I went to see him, and the young lady said it was in a meeting, but she said, let me know when I can see him. He came right after the meeting. He said, Louis, you're in trouble, boy. So he told me what to do. So I called all the Baltimore County State's Attorney's office. You know, there's got to be somebody that's up there that's looking over me. So when I called, Liz and I were having breakfast, and I asked if I could speak to Mr. I know his name is Scott Schellenberg. I said, may I speak to Mr.